make yourself comfortable in bed. Position yourself. You are on a cloud, and you're traveling through time. You're traveling through space, and you see all the planets and stars around you. The dim blue light turns out to be progressively clear, and the sky unexpectedly turns out to be light blue. Soon, the cloud stops, and watching out from it, you can get a brief look at the port with pontoons that sail. And the focal point of this port, there is a sculpture speaking to the god Helium, the purported Colossus of Rhodes. You are in the 3rd century BC, and you have the pleasure of seeing one of the structures considered the 7 miracles of the antiquated world. A monstrous bronze god, more than 100 feet high, and riding a harbor mouth, flaring light held on high, the poles of incredible ships going between his legs. This is the exemplary picture of the miracle of the antiquated world, known as the Colossus of Rhodes, a work of art of both workmanship and building. The truth was no uncertainty, noteworthy, yet fairly unique. It's exceptionally impossible that the Colossus rode a harbor mouth, as a sculpture on such a scale worked of bronze would have essentially crumpled under its own weight. The picture is undoubtedly a whimsical result of the artistic, creative mind. In Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, for instance, Cassius says of Caesar that he doth straddle the tight world like a colossus, and we frivolous men stroll under his tremendous legs. Conceived of fighting and appreciation. What is known is that the Colossus was worked in the city of Rhodes on the Greek island of a similar name, somewhere in the range of 292 and 280 BC. Its designer was Haris of Lindos, and it was probably the tallest sculpture in the Old World. It stood for over 60 years before being felled by an earthquake in 226 BC. The Colossus of Rhodes was the result of fighting and appreciation. A commercial republic with an enormous and fiery naval force, the eastern Mediterranean island had developed rich on the harbor levy got from the tremendous measure of exchange that went through its port. It successfully controlled the passageway to the Aegean. It had incredible vital significance, making it an alluring objective for the individuals who wished to hold on to the road's capacity and impact for their own ends. The Siege of Rhodes, about 305 to 304 BC, is one of the most celebrated of times long past. It was arranged by the Macedonian Demetrius Poliorcetes, the child of Alexander the Great's replacement and general, Antigonus I, to break the island's union with Ptolemy I of Egypt. Demetrius had just vanquished Cyprus in 306 BC, yet Rhodes proved stronger. Supported by Ptolemy's maritime power, for a year the city withstood Demetrius's bar, and he had to settle the contention with a harmony arrangement. Demetrius's powers pulled back, abandoning a lot of their weapons, including an enormous metal attack tower known as the Helepolis. Through melting or auctioning off this gear of war, the residents of Rhodes had the option to praise their freedom by utilizing it to finance a strong memorial sculpture of their benefactor god Helios, whose faction persuaded the island. A tribute to a divine being. For a planner, they went to Haris of Lindos, a local on the island who had an understanding of building large-scale sculptures. He was an understudy of Lysippus, court stone carver to Alexander the Great, who developed a 70-foot bronze sculpture of Zeus at Tarentum. The site picked for the Colossus was well on the way aside of the passage to the Mandrake harbor, potentially on the sea wall. The Colossus itself was around 98 feet high and stood on a 50-foot high foundation of white marble. The lower center of the Colossus was loaded up with stone to help strength. Its skin, framed from bronze plates bolted into an inward system of iron bars. Earthen hills were most likely developed around the Colossus to help its development as it grew in stature. The Colossus was devoted to Helios, the sun divine force of Greek folklore. He is generally depicted wearing a brilliant aureole of sun rays on his head, and the Colossus may well have worn a similar adornment. Its rule over the harbor at Rhodes was brief. In reality, it had the briefest life expectancy of any of the seven wonders. In 226 BC, a massive earthquake hit the island, devastating quite a bit of its capital. As per Strabo, the Colossus lashed out at the knees and collided with earth. The island's partner, Ptolemy III of Egypt, offered assets for its quick reproduction. Cautioned by a prophet not to modify the Colossus, the residents of Rhodes declined his offer. A despicable end. For almost 9 centuries, the remaining parts of the Colossus lay on the ground. Indeed, even in its fallen, broken state, it could at present incite wonder. Yet, in any event, lying on the ground, it is a wonder. Composed Pliny the Elder, who likewise noticed that couple of individuals can make their arms meet around the thumb. In the 7th century, the remaining parts of the Colossus were at long last separated. An Arab power attacked Rhodes and seized the island. As per the writer Theophanes the Confessor, the Colossus was offered to a Jewish trader from Edessa, who shipped his crown jewels to Syria on the backs of 900 camels. A pitiful and dishonorable end for one of the wonders of the world. Ace and student, Lysippus and Charis of Lindos. Alongside Scopas of Paros and Praxiteles, Lysippus is viewed as one of the 3 biggest stone carvers of the classical Greek period. As with so much Greek model, his work is known uniquely from different reproductions. Conceived around 390 BC, Lysippus worked in both bronze and marble, and was known for the beauty and tastefulness of his style, magnificently evident in models. For example, Eros stringing his bow, a reproduction of which can be found in the British Museum. As a court artist to Alexander the Great, he delivered the pictures by which we know perhaps the best figure of history, which is generally depicted as an attractive, vivacious youngster with disheveled hair. A bronze portrayal of Alexander by Lysippus was said to have the vibe of fire in its eyes. In the same way as other significant artists of times long past, Lysippus ran a bustling workshop and mentored an enormous number of students, among them Charis of Lindos, the maker of the Colossus of Rhodes. It's conceivable that Charis didn't live long enough to see his sculpture wrapped up. A story expresses that he offered to assemble a sculpture double the size of that at first proposed, for double the charge. Helios, the sun god. He rose every day from the ocean and drove his 4-horsed sun chariot over the sky, circling the earth until, at dusk, he dove once again into the waves, proclaiming the beginning of the night. Regularly related to Apollo, the Greek lord of light, not at all like Apollo, Helios was not an Olympian. He was a Titan, a more established pantheon of savagely, groundbreaking gods, plunged from the earth as Gaia, and the sky as Uranus, who controlled during the Golden Age and were vanquished by the Olympians. Extraordinary compared to other realized stories encompassing Helios included the vainglorious adventures of his child, Phaeton, who broadly attempted to drive his dad's chariot, yet lost control, colliding with the earth and setting the world on fire. Did the essence of the Colossus of Rhodes mirror that of Alexander the Great? A cut marble head of Helios in the historical center at Rhodes absolutely takes after, in its facial highlights and vivacity, portrayals of Alexander that make due from the old world. It's likewise been said that the picture of Helios, with his sunray hood, transformed in future hundreds of years into portrayals of the haloed Christ. Titanic motivation, the Statue of Liberty. The seven wonders of the world have inspired incalculable impersonations, extraordinary and little, from the beginning of time. The Colossus of Rhodes was unquestionably reverberated in the plan, stance, and measurement of one of the most well-known, stupendous sculptures of the advanced period, the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. Structured by Frederick Bartholdi and committed in 1886, the sculpture, one arm holding up a blazing light, remains on Liberty Island and invited the tremendous quantities of workers who rushed to another life in the land of the free. Send these, the destitute, whirlwind-tossed to me. I lift my light close to the brilliant entryway. States Emma Lazarus's commended sonnet, The New Colossus, 1883, which is recorded on a bronze plaque on the statue. Her sonnet additionally makes a less complimentary reference to the Colossus of Rhodes as the audacious mammoth of Greek notoriety.